Conservation Commission, each one-year term. Is there any discussion on that motion to approve? No discussion. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None opposed? Motion carries. Next item is announcements of forthcoming events of public interest, committee and department reports. And we'll start with committee reports and committee chairs, starting with trustee Rick Miller.
General Government and Finance will meet on April 17th at 6 p.m. in this boardroom.
Thank you. Trustee Myers.
That's what I was trying to discuss before, but we will be meeting on the 17th at 6 p.m. in this side room behind me. Public safety.
Public safety, thank you.
That's what I
Does
read.
anyone know when the next Public Works meeting is scheduled? Some, sorry, say it
The
again.
5th, okay.
April 5th, thank you, at 5:30? Okay, in this boardroom. Thank you. Does anyone else have anything else for announcements of forthcoming events of public interest, committee and department reports they'd like to bring forward? Trustee Pieper.
I'm not completely set up yet, but the Economic Development Commission is meeting in May. I would think the second week, but I don't have, not logged in yet, so.
Okay,
I believe
May
it's
9th?
the 10th. 10th.
I can neither confirm nor deny.
okay. Anything else for announcements of forthcoming events of public interest, committee or department reports? If not, we can go to citizen input and public appearance on items not subject to a public hearing. There are no public hearings on tonight's agenda. So if there's anyone within our audience or joining us via WebEx that would like to participate in citizen input and public appearance, you're welcome to do so at this time. If you're joining us via WebEx, just please let the moderator know of your intent. If you are in the audience, please come forward and state your name and address for the record at the podium in the center of the room. Anyone wishing to come forward for citizen input public appearance?
Melanie Smythe, N140W17938 Cedar Lane. The agenda says WebEx isn't working. So,
I've been told that it was working during the GGF and they anticipate it to be working
Okay.
now.
it's
And Steve is logged into it and sees it working now.
okay. Okay, great. It would be nice that for people to know that. Okay, so we have some serious people gaps in key departments of fire, public, DPW, and engineering, and perhaps some others. We had some discussion at the GGF earlier about police and fire and wages. And at the COW meetings last October, or Committee of the Whole, the presentations or the time allotted to the fire and police chiefs was not enough. They actually did not complete their presentations in the detail that was required of them to be able to circumvent and not have to have the conversations that we're having today. Also, because there were only 3 meetings, each presentation by each department only occurred once with no opportunity to tie up loose ends. So I'm asking for a 4th meeting for the COW meetings this year so that any kind of loose ends can be tied up. It was a very dissatisfactory process. I remember being told by one of the trustees, oh yeah, we'll get to it at the end. We'll come back and we'll have all of those discussions where we get to tie up all of those loose ends. Well, it didn't happen. I sat through all 3 of them. The fire, and I believe the fire and police personnel issues stem in part from not following through on that 4th meeting last year. Some of it is new, some of it is circumstances with crime rates and other things that are happening in the area. Also, today, that's something that's different from then. The banking turmoil in the world is already affecting smaller banks, and that would be banks that have a value or asset value of 250 billion or less. These are important banks in the development world because these are the banks that make the loans to commercial and industrial projects. And already we're hearing that they are not wanting to, they're wanting to reduce the amount of loans by about 40%. I read a report on that today. So I think that coupled with the needs of personnel and the recession that's probably coming and the banking turmoil, that we should rethink the emphasis on development and the use of TIDs and the diversion of tax revenue out of the general funds and needs to swing back to cover our basic costs of people. I think it's time to have those conversations, and we should be prepared to do that at the COW meetings and have that fourth COW meeting too. Oh, and the one in April for looking for volunteers, is that, I'm asking for that one to be on the calendar as well. I can't remember what that's called. I think it's the third Tuesday.
When we usually go through each of the different committees that are
Yeah.
available for residents to participate.
Yep.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming forward. Is there anyone else that wishes to come forward at this time for announcements of forthcoming events of public interest, citizen input or public appearance?
Well, the Chamber's having their community awards banquet. Can I get my 10 seconds back on that on Thursday? You're all invited.
I heard it was full.
It is, there's a waiting list, but if you pay me enough, you can have my spot. No, I'm kidding. All right, let's get to the at hand, because I know the timer's going to start. I talk fast, so it's great. I want to give a shout out to Matt. Matt's fantastic. Keep him around. He's knowledgeable, responds in a timely manner, does a great job, gives information. And I know he didn't pay me to say that. He's a great guy. Keep him around, please. I guess I don't know where to begin, but I talk about something. You guys know me. $1.1 million unaudited surplus. We know it's not 1.1 million. I'm concerned about that. However it happened, I'm still concerned about it. And I'm allowed to be. I'm a resident of this village. I was told we had 1.1 million. We don't have 1.1 million. We know that. You know that, and I know that. So we never had it. A few of us have been sitting up here for months saying, let's wait till it's audited, wait till it's audited, wait till it's audited. Well, it was attempted to be spent in August, presentation to GGF to spend it on self-funded health plan that was underwater, spend it on an assessor, and then in October, November, it was brought forth to spend 200,000 of it on a bonus for people in the village. Not that they don't deserve it, but spending money we don't have, and now we found out if we'd done that, we wouldn't have had the money. So it would have been a hole in the budget, right? So it's a good thing we didn't spend that, because it's not 1.1, it's 350. That's a big difference. In the private sector where I work, and where all of you work, most of you, that wouldn't go over well. So it's concerning. Baker Tilly, they're a good firm. They should present a full audit report, not just to GGF next month, but also to this entity. So those of you not on GGF can ask questions directly of them. I think you deserve to do that. I think you should have the opportunity to do that. So, I looked through the audit information. A couple things jump out, and I'll be quick. 160,000 for uncollectible ambulance debt sounds high to me. Have we ever hired a collection agency to try to chase down some of that money? I've heard we've done it in the past. Have we tried to do it this time? Even 20 or 25% net, which is what you'll get if you do one of those entities, is better than zero. Don't just write off 160. We'll try to collect it. If it's uncollectible, it is, but give it a shot. Just saying. When I see Tire Muni utility billing, I'm on the utility commission, is not, I don't think it's an improvement. It's got to be an expectation after a year. I know it's a lot of work. We got other things. We got financial reporting that's not done. And I know all the numbers have been pushed out for 6 months further or 5 months further, but we need to get that done. So finally, we have to separate finance and the clerk treasurer functions. We don't have a check and balance built in internally. You might have did it back then because you had everybody quit. Now it's time you have to separate those functions. That's the way it is in the private world. That's a check and balance. You need to do that. So I saw it on there being discussed. That is absolutely critical if you want to get numbers that you can believe in and not have this happen again. Thank you.
Thank you for coming forward. Is there anyone else that wishes to come forward at this time for citizen input or public appearance, or is anyone joining us via WebEx that would like to participate? All right. Then that would take us to the next item on the agenda, which is consent agenda. Board?
Motion to approve, I'm going to call it A, B, and C.
Motion made and seconded to approve consent agenda A and B, and also the item brought forward from Public Works, which we are now calling C. Any
Thank you.
discussion on that motion to approve?
Uh,
Trustee Chan Miller.
It is labeled A under Public Works and Highway. So are we just doing A and B?
I phrased it as A and B, and I called it C, I called the other A C, just to use the alphabet.
Or we can just call Public Works A. So all items as listed under consent agenda then.
I had it moved for this meeting so that we could get an explanation of the Highway Works. Pull
So you want to pull item A?
A from
Okay.
Public Works. and
Further
Highway.
discussion on the motion to approve
Please.
consent agenda? No further discussion, then we'll do a roll call vote on A and B and have one discussion on item C. Roll call vote.
Trustee Baum? Trustee Hudson?
Aye.
Trustee sorry. Trustee Jan Miller?
Aye.
Trustee Rick Miller?
Aye.
Trustee Myers?
Aye.
Trustee Nyrather?
Aye.
Trustee Pieper? Aye. And President Walter?
Aye. Then we'll go to the Public Works and Highway Committee. Unanimous recommendation with Highway A, Highway Department Patrol Truck, reallocation of excess building and grounds capital funds to cover costs. Trustee Chan Miller.
Yes. I see that Scott's here and I wanted an explanation of where this excess money was coming from, please. You're the expert. Thank you.
Good evening. In our buildings and grounds capital budget, we had some flooring work, which was approved at Public Works, and we had kind of had a discussion there that the projects came in very favorably in consideration to the budgetary figure we had. So that project is underway right now. As a matter of fact, it's actually starting to wrap up, coming along really well. So we're looking to reallocate some of those funds over to the Highway Department so that we can finish building our second patrol truck, which we made a commitment to. So those trucks are currently being constructed, and we're hoping to have the chassis in May. And then we'll send those two chassis out to Madison to be built. We have enough money to finish building one of them right now. And the shortfall is what we're looking to cover from the buildings and grounds capital budget.
So the surplus, it says it's covered by the surplus. Is it coming out of your budget or is it coming out of a surplus budget?
So there is a surplus
'Cause
in a
there's two
project
different
budget.
numbers.
Yep.
There's two different numbers.
So, yep. So 4519,570, 8222 is a project budget, capital project budget in parks or in buildings and grounds. And it's specifically the fire department. So we had a project budget. The project came in favorably, significantly under budget, left a surplus. And we have a shortfall in the highway budget, 4542, 570, 8520. And we're just looking to take those funds and shift them from one capital budget into the other to cover a shortfall where we had a surplus.
But this is all under Public Works.
Be all under Public Works, yes.
Okay. That, when I saw surplus, I was concerned about it coming out of surplus.
No.
That was just diminished. So, okay, so
Yeah.
that's in your budget.
All
Thank you. I appreciate that.
You bet.
So would you make a motion to approve?
I would like to make a motion to approve item A under Public Works Committee, Highway Department Patrol Truck, reallocation of excess building and grounds capital funds to cover cost.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on a motion to approve? No discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Jan Miller? Trustee Rick Miller?
Aye.
Trustee Baum? Trustee Hudson? Trustee Kaminsky? Oh, sorry. I forgot to cross her off.
That's twice.
I know. Trustee Myers?
Aye.
Trustee Nyrather,
Aye.
Trustee Peeper,
No,
and President Walter.
Aye. All right, that takes care of consent agenda. In my haste, I did forget to overlook something in citizen input public appearance. Would somebody like to make a motion to go back to citizen input and public appearance, please?
I'll make a motion to go back to comments and public appearance, please.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Not opposed? Motion carries. I do have several comments that came in from email, and the first one came in on Monday, March 20th at 12:34 PM, and it says, "Hello, please just give an exact date when the cable channel will be fixed. This is going on well over 2 years. Tired of paying for a service every month, which we were told Channel 25 is free to us by the village, but we still have to pay our bill to Spectrum, if it is fixed or not. We can't use Channel 24 or WebEx or YouTube to watch and listen to the meetings in the Village Hall or the candidate forum either. If this was your home, would this be acceptable? It was stated on 3/6/23, 6 to 8 weeks to fix it per an email from the village administrator. So what is it? Asked to have a weekly update on this issue. So on 3/17/23, another update email from the village administrator. That great, but another 6 to 8 weeks before it fix. We figure maybe the end of May 2023, keyword maybe. If this was your home, you would be on the phone to Spectrum demanding that it would be fixed now, not finger pointing saying waiting on Spectrum to come back. By the way, we know of 2 people at least on the village board who has Spectrum. So is this okay with you? Pay your bill, but no Channel 25. So when will the village step up and demand it to be fixed? Better yet, just give the residents who have Spectrum a check for the issue until it's fixed. That's right. We don't have 1.1 million surplus, only 350,000. Guess that won't happen. Taxpayers just shut up and pay the bill. Wrong. Stop using the cable channel not being fixed to hide things from the residents. Also, when will all the minutes for the meeting for 2022 and 2023 be updated? This is the only way residents kind of know what is going on. Not a lot in the Germantown news either. Communication need a lot of improvement. This is from Bill Schneider on Bayberry Circle in Germantown. Next one was received Monday, March 20th at 12:44 PM. And that one reads, "Hello, can you please explain to us, the residents, why the 2021 surplus went from 1.1 million down to 350,000? Still doesn't sound like the 2020 budget is done yet. When will it be done for good? Please don't use the excuses that you had a staff shortage due to 2 deputy clerks treasurers in 2022 quitting and a utility billing clerk on medical leave and a temporary CLA accountant. Please don't use couldn't hire anyone due to lack of pay. We didn't hear more money needed for pay all the time. We are not comparable to other or the system crash and etc. Just saw today a job posting for the utility billing clerk on the website. So when did the new hire just quit or replace the last one who recently quit? What is this saying about working in the village hall? Just admitted you failed to ask for help to get the jobs done or to hire temporary help, or someone just wanted to be in control. Sounds like there's an issue with personnel in the village. So does this mean our taxes will go up again, just like this last year? But this acceptable for the residents to keep on digging into their pockets to bail out the village for a mistake they keep making? It's time for a big change in the village, how things are done, how all employees should be held responsible for the jobs they are hired to do. Please remember this includes the president, trustees, and village administrator too. The residents put their faith in your hands. We deserve better from all involved. Please stop saying another 6 to 8 weeks before the cable, WebEx, and YouTube is fixed. How could the chamber get the candidate forum out to residents? The village is a larger place than the chambers. What are you trying to hide from the residents? And that is from Carol Schneider on Bayberry Circle in Germantown, Wisconsin. Did receive another communication that was titled Budget Ideas, with an assumption that this starts with the premise the village wants to fix their budget and live within their means. Unless we commit to that, no real change can happen. Maybe we did that long ago, I am not sure, but today we borrow a lot, make the taxpayers pay for everything, and don't communicate well with regards to our actions and how they will affect the taxpayers. With that in mind, here are some ideas I've come up with a lot of research and review of old minutes and agendas. As a point of clarification, these are my opinions. Carrying over, first one, carrying over monies for roads is a zero-sum game. The state send us roughly 1.2 million in transportation aid yearly, so we have 1.2 million to spend on roads, including seal coating, crack repair, et cetera. If we want to do a $2 million project, we have to do 1 million of road work and save up the difference to do the work when we have the funds, or get a matching grant from the state, county, or feds. As an example, it would be foolish to consider a 5.1 million complete teardown and repave of division when we don't have the money. Use 300,000 from the 2023 or 2024 budget and do the short-term fix, then design a capital plan and budget for it. If you do have to borrow, they should be 5-year notes so we can do another big 5-year project. Number two, we really don't have a zero-sum balanced budget, all told. The reason I say this is we borrow 3.2 to 3.5 million a year for various things above and beyond the budget. I am told it is always long-term notes, 10 years or so. We will never get things under control if we continue to do this. I've never said it was easy, just necessary. To my knowledge, the capital borrowing is not to cover operational expenses, at least I hope not. Number three, I believe, if I'm counting correctly, yep. We cannot develop our way out of a tight budget. We have 4 TIDs currently open, and none of them will close until 2029 at the earliest, so no help for the budget for roads, public safety, school expansion, etc. Opening TIDs diverts taxpayers' fund from the budget. As we know, we likely would need to not open another TID until one closes, otherwise we are burying ourselves even deeper. Number 4, I feel that there is a way to fund a few police officers and firefighter personnel right now, and then an RFP needs to be done to explore a referendum. It might be tough since we had one for the IGA in November, and taxpayers might be referendum weary. I am looking into this and hope to provide info at a later date. Number 5, we need a complete analysis done of our current staff needs and budgets. If we have less employees overall than in 2021, where is that money being allocated? Is it going to pay for village services or being held in the budget until we backfill the position? This is critical to see if there's any room for other areas of the budget. Number 6, allocating a percentage of salaries. 7 positions is a bad idea. I know it's not illegal, but it's not transparent at all and more complex. Why do this until we have Tyler Munis up and running? Keep things simple and be transparent so people don't guess. Number 7, water rates. I have looked at this very closely. In all the talk about raising the water rates dramatically, Gales has not been mentioned. We all know they are the biggest potential user of water in the village by far. Yet they appear to be using less and less municipal water each year, creating a hole in the water utility budget reserves. And now that had a big water increase, they are likely to use even less. Has anyone talked to them about working out some sort of credit based on usage as a way to get them to use a fixed amount of water yearly? If not, why not? And let me just make sure I'm keeping track. Number 8. One last thing, the board should understand taxes are going up for the Department of Public Works building, an average of $500 to $700 a year for several years based on Ayler's reporting. Now you are talking about hitting them up for another increase for public safety funding. So I think caution is important. And this communication is from Scott Heffley, resident of Germantown. That takes care of all items I have for comments and communication under citizen input public appearance. So then we can go to new business, starting with new business item A. And item A is the 2021 audit update. To give us more information background on that new business item, we'll turn the meeting over to our village administrator, Steve Krecklow.
Right, and microphone doesn't want to work. Oh, there it's on. This light wasn't working. All right, I have a PowerPoint presentation that was in the packet that I'll walk through some information on the 2021 audit. First, I just want to go back and give some background and some context related to the audit and some of the history of it. We had a lot of challenges in completing the 2021 close and getting the audit process underway. We had the retirement of basically the entire finance department in the fourth quarter of 2020, and that really pushed us back for the 2020 audit and contributing a backlog of 2021 entries. So as we were kind of in a bit of a scramble mode during that particular January and February, we got behind and had difficulty catching up. I know as this body is aware, we've had ongoing problems with MSI Financial Software. That's our legacy system that we're in the process of replacing. It's dates back to the late 1990s in terms of the age of the software. It is an older COBOL-based system, which is difficult to operate and use, and was very unstable. So as staff would be making entries or making adjustments, oftentimes data was lost as the system would crash. It would make entries, look for information on one day, come back the next day, and find that the information was gone. There also, and this is a significant factor in the difficulty in looking at the numbers and running reports, is MSI required a complex series of manual processes. It's pretty unusual. I don't know of any financial systems that operate this way today, and I don't think there were very many back in the 90s that operated that way. But every transaction was initially completed in the general fund. So when somebody came in to pay a water bill, that revenue was received into the general fund. When the sewer utility paid an accounts payable invoice, that was paid for out of the general fund. And then on a regular basis, there would have to be interfund transfers that would be made within the system to balance that. And that makes the system very cumbersome to use, very difficult to get data out of. There are also staffing shortages, as we've talked about in the past. We did combine finance and the clerk's office when those retirements took place in order to make sure that we were able to continue to be up and operating. Of the 3 people that left within that last 6 weeks period, 2 people gave 2 weeks notice, including the person who was responsible for doing payroll. So we had to take action quickly in order to keep operations up and running. 2 of the deputy clerk treasurers did leave for other positions. We were able to fill them with highly qualified people in a fairly short period of time, but there's no question that set us back somewhat. The utility billing clerk, during kind of a key component when we were sending out adjustments to utility bills, had a medical procedure that required a sick leave, medical leave, and she left the village shortly afterwards. And then finally, one of the other staff people that we were relying on heavily was a CPA from the accounting firm CLA Clifton Larson Anderson, who did a lot of the work in helping to close and try to balance 2021. And after getting to a key point of the project, he was a retired individual who left and went down to Florida and decided he didn't want to do any more of this. But that was a big loss for us. And in addition to that, I think there was an extraordinary workload on staff in addition to their regular operations. The Tyler Munis implementation was underway during 2022, which is a heavy additional workload on staff that they're doing above and beyond their normal responsibilities. And as well as that, we replaced a couple of thousand water meters that were not working properly, as well as the meter reading software, and developing a new interface between the meter reading software and the financial system. We also had the issue of the server crash and the data loss that took place on September 24th. Server failed, and in the process, that failure corrupted backup files back to July 30th of 2022. In addition to a lot of spreadsheets, reports, and other types of documents, we lost nearly 8 weeks worth of MSI entries that staff had to go back and re-enter for a second time again, in addition to the other responsibilities that were going on. And those entries had to be made from, PDFs of files, attachments to emails, whatever we were able to find in order to recreate that data. Oh, I'm behind up here. So where are we today? Obviously, we're very late in the process, much later than we would want to be, but we have been working very diligently with Baker Tilly. The financial statements and footnotes are complete and have been audited. There's no additional work to do for that. The statistical section of the annual comprehensive financial report is complete and currently under review by Baker Tilly. The last piece that is not completed is the transmittal letter. And that is something that I'm working on presently. There's a fair amount of data that goes in there gathering to try to update. Then that will be submitted to Baker Tilly, and they'll review that as well. Baker Tilly is scheduled to present the audit, and typically we do that to the General Government and Finance Committee, and their next meeting is on April 17th. And that is at the pleasure of the board. If you'd prefer to have that presentation at GGF as is typical, or bring that to the full village board, we can staff and Baker Tilly can go either way with that. So I just want to touch base on the numbers that we presented during the budget process and earlier this year. That projected surplus was calculated by the CPA, who is here on a temporary basis from CLA in mid-year of 2022. And the way that he calculated that was pulling data from MSI and entered it into a reconciliation spreadsheet of interfund transfers. So looking at all of those changes that had to be made, he reviewed the data that from MSI and went through initial reconciliation. And based on that, there was an estimated budget surplus of $1.1 million, which is what I had previously presented to the village board. So there were some audit findings that affected that total that did not show up in the analysis that was completed previously. And I have these outlined on this slide. First, were property tax allocation. The state lottery tax credit comes to the village in the form of a check that comes at the beginning of the year from Washington County. When that check was received, it was applied only to the general fund, but it should have been distributed to other levy-supported funds. And maybe just backing up a little bit in terms of explanation, village finances are divided into multiple funds. There's the primary one that we think about is a general fund. That's the highways department, the police department, the fire department, park and rec, village administration, village board, et cetera. And that's the primary source of revenue for the general fund is the property tax levy. There's the capital fund, which is our capital projects, construction projects, and the primary source of revenue for the capital fund is the borrowing that we do each year. Then there's the debt service fund, which is the property tax levy oriented fund, which pays the debt service that we issue each year. And those are primarily property taxes, although there are some other revenues there. And then we have our utilities, sewer and water utilities are separate funds that do not receive any property taxes. So when the property tax allocation came in, that should have been applied only to the general fund. Should have been applied to all of the levy-supported funds, but it was only applied to the general fund. And that adjustment in the audit process reduced the general fund revenue by $400,000. Other revenues, there were several revenues from the state that were overstated in the report, primarily shared revenue and computer aid. And that was an error that was identified during the audit process, reduced revenue by about $190,000. And then finally, the ambulance fees. When the fire department responds to emergencies, they do bill for those services. That we actually do use a collection agency that sends those bills out and collects the revenue. In addition, anything that they're unable to collect is referred to the state, and the state has two programs, the Tax Refund Intercept Program, or TRIP, so that if anybody who owes the village money gets, for this purpose or any others, gets a tax refund, that refund is intercepted and it is used to pay the obligation to the village. In addition, we utilize what's referred to as a state debt collection program, which is the Department of Revenue administers, and they do charge a percentage fee for that. But for municipalities that refer debt to them, as we do, they have a lot of tools that normal collection agencies don't have. For example, they're able to garnish wages and take other sorts of collection actions that normal collection agencies cannot do. So we have, I think, a pretty rigorous method of trying to collect those revenues. However, the village, like most municipalities, finds that there's a percentage of ambulance fees that are not collectible for a variety of reasons. People who aren't working, who don't have any assets, potentially people who pass away and are no longer available to pay the bills that are sent out. And therefore, it's appropriate to adjust those revenues in the financial reports for the amount that's estimated to be uncollectible. And that amount, after our finance staff worked with Baker Tilly, was adjusted and reduced that revenue by $160,000 for the year. So that leaves us with a budgetary surplus for 2021 of $350,000. There is, and this gets into some accounting weeds again, but there is some explanation that I'd like to provide with that. The budgetary surplus is different than the balance sheet surplus. The balance sheet are the financial reports that are prepared by the village and audited by Baker Tilly. And the balance sheets, there's a balance sheet, the statement of financial activities, and the cash flow statement. The purpose of especially those two reports is to prevent a fair representation of the value of the village's assets and a value of the village's liabilities, giving a net fund balance in the case of the general fund. And the standards for reporting some revenues and some expenses are different for balance sheet reporting than they are for budgetary surplus, or for budgetary accounting. For budgetary accounting, revenue is reported when it's measurable and available. And if you think about the purpose of a budget, it's to control spending and make sure that over the course of a budgetary cycle, that an organization is not spending more than it has resources available to pay. So that's why that standard is a little bit different than what you might see on a balance sheet as part of a financial statement. And where this comes into play is under the category of investment revenue. In earnings on investments, on a financial statement basis, there's a requirement to adjust the securities that the village currently holds on a mark-to-market basis. So when we take part of that general fund balance and we invest it in treasuries or municipal bonds or other items, we usually hold those investments to maturity. We don't go out and actively trade securities typically on a day-to-day basis. So for a balance sheet accounting, you want to show what is the true value of those. And that's why they use the mark to market. So you adjust it on what the basis of the market value of those securities are at the time that the report is prepared. However, from a budgetary perspective, you look at what are the actual earnings that are realized from those investments when they come to maturity. So a treasury comes to maturity, we get our money back plus interest. That interest is what's reported for earnings under earnings and investments. And that difference is about $300,000. So that's why there's a budgetary surplus of $350,000 while there's a balance sheet surplus of a little over $50,000. So there are a lot of steps that we're taking to try to improve the financial reporting going forward, both the timeliness and the accuracy of it. there's improvements to our financial systems. As I mentioned, we replaced the outdated water meters in 2022 and now have a more functional interface between the meter reading system and our financial systems. Tyler Munis utility billing is now live. We've had Matthew Usselding, our interim finance director, and Tyler Munis are here, and they've been working diligently to get the first quarter bill out using Tyler Munis, and that's expected to happen next week. Tyler Munis financials are in process of being implemented and expect those to go live in the fall. And Tyler Munis HR payroll implementation is also underway, and we expect that to go live by the end of the year. There are also some organizational improvements that we're working on that I'm going to be recommending. That was one that has been adopted, and one that is a couple that are coming forward. One is that we created an accountant position last September, and I think that individual who has a bachelor's and a master's degree in accounting, from Northern Michigan University, and has a lot of expertise in this area, has been instrumental in helping us get to the point that we are today and sorting through some of the issues that we've had. And then I plan to submit a request to GGF at the meeting in April to separate the finance and clerk functions. I think combining those was the right decision at the time, 2 years ago. But I think that things are different now. We have some opportunities to improve our processes and our staffing, and that will lead to more efficient and accurate reporting in the future. And then in addition, we're reviewing the staffing levels, and we'll be bringing that review to the GGF committee in April as well. So that is the overview of the presentation I had, and I can answer any questions.
Board? Trustee Myers?
Mr. Administrator, in regard to 2023 audit, I hope that, and I need your input, that we would have this before we start doing the budget for 2024. Can I be assured that that would happen?
We are definitely working with that goal in mind, and in fact, we want to and need to have that complete before we implement Tyler Munis financials. We need to have 2022 closed out so we can upload that data into Tyler Munis. So it's an important objective. It's a top priority that we have. I think that especially with the accountant position and with Mr. Usselding and getting more involved in the close and the audit this year, that there are some things that we've identified, some issues further ahead, and I think that this process will be smoother than what we've had in the past. But I guess I would also say that if I've learned nothing else through this process, it's not to make promises that I may not be able to keep, that there may be things outside of my control. So I will make the promise and the assurance that I and the rest of the staff here will do everything that we possibly can to make that happen.
Thank you, Mr. Administrator. The only thing I would say is it possible that you can keep us updated each month as to where that is in the process, so we would maybe be somewhat assured to some degree that it might be done by that time.
Yes, I can do that, and I can include regular updates in my weekly update that I send out as well.
Thank you again.
And I just want to jump in just to make sure that we're very clear on that answer, because Trustee Meyer's question was the 2023 audit for the budget. Recognize that will not be done before you get to the budget. The 2023 audits will be done the first part of 2024. The answer that Mr. Krecklow gave is the 2022 budget, which in most cases would be presently underway, but I assume isn't based on the fact that they're still doing the previous year.
Trustee Nyrider.
Steve, can we go back to I have it as page 4, the status of audit and annual financial report, that page. Like, I guess a comment was made at the citizen comment as a resident, they're concerned about this not being done. And I am too, as both a village official, but also as a resident of Germantown, that this is not done. And while I'm not going to go sit in here and rip on every excuse that's out here, to me, this is an unfair time frame. But I guess the questions I have was, it says bullet point number 2, statistical section complete and under review. When will that review be done? Will that be done by the 17th of April?
Yes.
And that's definite.
Yes, that review is a review that's being completed by Baker Tilly, and they have committed to having the document prepared and complete and ready for presentation to the village board on April 17th.
And what happens if they do not get that done? What are we going to do?
Well, I guess it depends on, I think it's unlikely that would happen. I believe that section is probably almost, the review is almost complete at this point. That's not, the statistical section does not typically take as much time for review as the financial statements. That's the real meat of the document and what takes the most time. So I think it's highly unlikely that would hold it up. And I guess when you ask the question, what would we do? It would depend on what the circumstances are and what the reasons for that would be.
When we went from, what was it, $1.3 million to 350,000, maybe there's a reason why that guy went down to Florida to sit on vacation. But I'm not going to judge that here. The other thing is the transmittal letter is near completion and needs review. Does that have to wait for after the meeting on the 17th for that to be, or can that be finished as well that night?
That will be finished as well. That is, and it's it's sort of a boilerplate template type of a letter that talks about several issues and it gives some updates as far as what happened. So all that I'm working on at this point is pulling together some data on, for example, how many housing units were constructed during 2021 and a few items like that have to be added. And actually the review that Baker Tilly completes on that is pretty cursory. It's actually, technically the transmittal letter is not an audited portion of the financial report. They don't attest to the transmittal letter, but they still do take a look at it and just give it a cursory review as well.
Does, so then basically the night of the 17th, and I agree that it should go to GGF, but I also think it should go to the full village board to review, because I think it's that important that everybody has a complete understanding. But is staff going to have time to review that all so that we're not laying it over to the May meeting or whatever? Is there a good chance that if everything is done and the I's are dotted and whatever, that we could approve it and those numbers would be official on April 17th?
Yes, I believe that'll be possible.
Because I think to continuously delay it, and I don't see a reason for delay. I think they got to be told that April 17th is our date, and they have to have it finished that night. Otherwise, believe me, I would start holding payments up to them as well. But I think they need to know that's the night we have to have it, because it's affecting a lot of other decisions we saw tonight, like at GGF or whatever. I don't feel comfortable in voting on a lot of expenditures because I don't know what that what that surplus is going to be. So I'm taking it that April 17th is the day, D-Day. Thank you.
Trustee Myers.
Mr. President, would it be at this time that I make a motion that this report be given to the full board rather than GGF?
Just to the full board, but not GGF, or both GGF and the full board?
To the full board only.
Hmm.
I'll second that.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion on the motion as stated.
We don't need redundancy. We pushed this to the village board tonight, and since all 4 members of GGF are on the village board, it wouldn't make sense to present to both.
Further discussion? No further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? None opposed, motion carries. Other questions? Trustee Hudson?
I have a question about the $160,000 in uncollected ambulance bills. Is that for fiscal year 2021, or is that a write-off for all years going into fiscal year 2021, please?
I may look back at our finance director, see if he knows that off the top of his head. It was a calculation prepared by our accountant in conjunction with Baker Tilly, but
If we're losing $160,000 a year in uncollected ambulances,
That
we
year.
have a very serious problem.
That year.
That's
I wouldn't say it per year, but I would say it for that year as audited.
I'm not going to argue with your word choice.
Correct that this section was put together by our accountant, Alex. I believe it is about 20% each year that is uncollected in ambulance debt. It's probably about the same, depending on ambulance usage, about 20% that remains uncollected. I think one change that we can make going forward is that historically they had budgeted the full amount that was collected or that was sent out to be collected. If the village board felt comfortable, we could lower the budget amount for that.
By
to make up that
20%?
difference.
You'd lower it by 20% in the projections for revenues for the fire department?
If that is the trend, then yes, I would.
Can we confirm that that is a trend and not a piece of data? Do we look at 20% and do we see that over 3 years? Or do we look at 20% and see that 1 year in 2021, excuse me, and 2020 was actually 7.5%?
From my conversations with our accountant, it was the last couple of years, 21, 20, and 19 was about 20%, give or take.
I would
Of the
say
total.
of the total. I would say that certainly is a trend and that writing it down by 20% would be wise to do. Thank you.
Trustee Rick Miller?
Yeah, if I recall though, during COVID, the collections were suspended, weren't they? And it did hit us harder at that time.
they were. The state debt collection program was suspended during 2020, and that definitely had an impact on that year. I would also say, and this is a conversation I think that we should continue and continue to do analysis on it. Ambulance fees are, from other places that I've been and other places I've seen, this may be a question the village board would want to address with Baker Tilly too. They do a lot of municipal audits and see what other communities are seeing for ambulance fees. But there typically is a pretty significant write-off for ambulance fees because of, some of the issues that I mentioned earlier.
Other questions? Trustee Jan Miller?
So let's say that our D-Day is 4/17. We get everything from Baker Tilly. They do the presentation and everything is copacetic. When do we work on the audit for 2022? immediately?
Yes, yeah, and I mean, to a great extent, I mean, that work is already underway. And I think that again, some of the things that we saw, that we learned going through this particular audit are going to help to make that process more efficient. But the work on the 2022 close and audit is already underway. But there is a lot of labor that goes into that. And, you know, again, it's on top of some of those extraordinary workload items are still out there. So, you know, staff knows when we need to get this done. And I think in addition to the budget process, we've got that date out there with the financials implementation. And we need to have final numbers for 2022 and to upload into Tyler Munis in order to go live with that system. So there's a lot of work to be done, and the work has already started.
I just want to remind you that last year you hired CLA to assist with that, and the board has been open to that. So now that you know the process and you know how much resource expenditures is going to be needed, I think that you need to get it done no matter what, because I, for one, as a trustee, I'm weary of approving a budget that's based on nebulous past expenditures. And we can't have a conversation about trying to save money in different areas if we don't know what is exactly spent, versus budgeted versus spent, and where we have some wiggle room to take it down a little bit. So I'm really looking forward to not just the 2021 audit, but also the 2022 audit, so that the committee of the whole, the COW meetings are meaningful.
They are meaningful.
They are meaningful, right?
They are
But they
meaningful no
will
matter
be
what.
more.
Don't discount last year just
I have the
because.
floor. I have the floor. He can override you.
Any,
sorry.
I'm merely adding comments
At the
to your
president.
question. Don't argue, please, both. Go ahead, trustee.
I'm just commenting that the committee of the whole needs to be meaningful. My definition of meaningful is accurate as well, okay? So I think we're both speaking the same language.
Okay.
That's what I want to work with real numbers, because it's hard enough as it is. So, is the final 2021 budget surplus 350,000?
Yes.
And that's what they're going to tell us on the 14th.
They are going,
Sorry, 17th.
they will be presenting, they do not audit the budget surplus, they audit the financial statements. So the financial statement surplus is $50,000. The budgetary surplus ties to the financial statement surplus.
Down on Pilgrim.
Okay. And I wasn't aware of the accountant position. I'm not opposed to the separate finance and clerk functions. As it is written in the Muni Code, there is a village clerk and there's a village treasurer. So is that what you're referring to?
The treasurer position is well, there's a deputy treasurer. The finance director is typically also the treasurer. And then there's a deputy clerk or deputy treasurer under that as well. So we would go back to the same structure that in essence was in place before 2021.
But it's the dates are April of 2022. And are these positions funded from the 2022 budget
2023 budget?
or 2023? Oh, yes, 2023. Thank you.
I'm still working through the numbers. But, and I guess those are things that I'll present at the GGF committee on April 17th, but I believe that we can do this within the funding that we have available.
What I would appreciate is having the actual, what's the word for it, Phil? Job description? Job description and then new chart.
Those are all things that, and that's why that is, I mentioned that it's coming, but that's why it's not before you today, because there is some more work that we need to do on job description, organizational chart, the budgetary analysis of it. And if I could just real briefly mention with CLA and I really do appreciate the board's willingness to bring in those additional resources last year to help with the process. And if there is a need for more resources this year, we will ask the board for that again. But one of the real challenges is finding people who are qualified and experienced in this work. And after the CPA that we were using left and moved on, we did, I mean, for several months, I continued to talk with the folks at CLA to find someone else. And they were unable to provide us with any candidates who were qualified and available to do that. I did also talk with some other accounting firms and some other temp staffing areas. And it's a pretty specialized skill set. CPAs who have experience with municipal accounting. If you ever want to, make one of your CPA friends run away into the night, try to start a conversation about encumbrance accounting and fund accounting and things that are unique to local government. And, generally they're not going to want to have anything to do with it. So it's a challenge to try to find those extra resources.
And did you ask Tyler Munis? Do they have other people? Can you hire them?
Software company.
Yeah, they don't provide those types of services.
Maybe they know somebody. Okay. Those were all the questions that I had.
Okay. Any other questions? If there are no other, we can go to the next item under new business, which is item B, audio visual system and channel 25 update, which will also be presented by Aaron. I almost said Steve.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, I was just going to give a very brief update on the AV equipment. So to start with, this picture up here, those are our live products. So the fiber optic system, that's the one we were talking about, things put in place in the 1990s. So that fiber optic unit was put in place in the 1990s. I had some Spectrum people here today. Nobody even knew what that was. So they had to call a lot of people who dealt with older equipment to even get any experience on what that was. So this new one on the bottom is our new Drake encoder. So that's the one that's in place right now. Well, it's not in place. It's sitting here right now. There's some back work being done on it, but I'll get to that in a second. Oh, wrong way. Okay, I have no idea what I'm doing, obviously. Okay, there we go. Okay, so COVID hit, AV equipment was installed. Poor quality on channel 25 was told to us by many individuals. The microphones were not working as expected, and the presenter box failed. So these are some things that happened after the AV equipment was installed. We then, as a board, decided to purchase a Drake encoder. There was an extended time for the delivery of this equipment, so it was delayed quite a bit. These were all effects due to COVID. A lot of equipment was being delayed. So this produced quite a lengthy process. But currently, I'm working with many different departments within Spectrum to get this Drake encoder installed. They provided us with a milestone description of all of these different steps that took place. We are now down to the last two. So we were able to get our 72-hour soak test done. And now we only have the channel build to be put in place as well as the channel launch. So those are the two things that we are waiting on for Spectrum to produce. Today I had Global Sight and Sound in here. We did get the the YouTube channel working as well as WebEx. So those two things are going on right now. I also had a Spectrum guy in today. We were unable to get channel 25. So I'm sorry to say, but that is not going to be done until the Drake encoder is complete. And this last slide is kind of doesn't even make sense anymore because now we have both the YouTube channel and WebEx up, but the issue that we were having before is that we only had the audio, or we only had the visual. So the audio was the only thing that we needed, but now we have YouTube and WebEx up, but not channel 25. So I just wanted to give a brief update on, what is going on. We're just waiting for that encoder to be done. They have to do some mapping and building out the broadcast. And once that's complete, then we will have our new Drake encoder ready for our channel 25. So I don't know if there's any questions, but.
Myers.
Thank you, Aaron, for all your work. It's been a tough road.
Trustee Nyrider.
How long did you say it would be till the Drake encoder is tentatively done?
It's hard to say. So I have asked this question of our project manager, and he says it has to go to a department that, they put it on a scale of importance level. So it could take up to 6 to 8 weeks. I'm not, there's a lot of more technical stuff that goes behind that. But if you'd like, I could always ask Doug to come in and try to describe it to you. But but every time he goes through it with me, I mean, it's just a process that they have to go through. And it's a department that, they have to hand it off to, so they don't even control how fast that process goes. So my project coordinator, the last thing he had to do with it was the 78-hour soak test, and then he has to give it to this other department to complete their steps.
Well, it's not so much knowing what it requires, it's when they're going to get it done, and can they give us a better ballpark? Because I've heard 6 to 8 weeks for, 6 to 8 weeks.
But the 6 to 8 weeks was once the soak test was done.
Okay.
And so now the soak test is completed, and so now that's when that process begins.
Who was it that we paid the $10,000 out to several months ago? Was that Spectrum, or was that?
That was Spectrum, and that was for the Drake encoder and this project. So that was all packaged together.
We paid them in full.
I believe so.
Boy, would we want to think that one over.
I'm sorry.
I'd have to go back and check. We approved
Yeah.
the contract, but I don't believe,
I don't
recall seeing
even-
an invoice.
Usually we didn't pay it all.
I don't think we did.
You haven't paid anything yet.
I don't think
I don't
so.
believe we paid anything.
Okay, good,
I'm sorry.
good. Okay. All right, thank you.
Yep.
Other questions? Trustee Hudson.
Is a constituent suggested to me after watching the candidate forum last week on Facebook Live. Is that something that we could also do, is broadcast our meetings on I'm not a Facebooker, I apologize. So I have to ask that to properly represent my constituent, who I'm also married to.
We could, however, we already have it on YouTube Live, so I think that would be kind of a redundancy. We do have it available on a live streaming platform already, so.
Thank you. I'll have her call you.
Other questions? Trustee Baum?
To your discussion about YouTube Live versus whatever live, do we have policies and standards that we can tell people these are what we're doing? Because I'm getting phone calls that I want it on this system. Well, we don't do it on that system. We do it on this system. I don't care. I don't do that system. I do this system. What can we tell people is these are the official ones we release it to?
Yep. So the answer to that is that it's coming. We've been meaning to bring forward a host of changes that relate to all of the virtual, hybrid, that type of approach. As we post-COVID, it's a little bit harder to rely on the federal rules now as they've kind of relaxed those rules. But obviously, we didn't want to bring forth policy changes of what it is exactly we're going to do while we weren't even sure if our system was going to work. So we do anticipate in April, once the new board is seated, that process will start, which will include, among other things, identifying where do we want to have things and those types of concerns. So,
Other questions? Trustee Jan Miller?
Brian, what did you mean by where we want to store these things? Or is that what you said, or?
Well, so just as an example of things that we've discussed internally, we currently use WebEx. WebEx is a fine product. It's just not as easy or as intuitive as some other products, sometimes both from a user perspective and also from our perspective. So for the thing internally we've discussed is that it may make some sense to move to, if there's a desire to keep the hybrid type approach going, to move to a platform such as Zoom, where instead of the convoluted approach that we need to take to get it to work on WebEx and YouTube at the same time, it's literally just click a button in Zoom and it does both automatically for you. So it'll be those types of discussions. Certainly, Trustee Hudson, your question about can we loop in Facebook Live into that process, those would be all things that would be part of that discussion. So.
Other questions? No other questions? Thank you, Aaron. Next item under new business is item C, authorization to Forth Infrastructure and Environmental to proceed in obtaining the PSC approval for Richfield's service area.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion, or do you want to hear any input from Mr. Ratajczyk? Larry?
Thank you. So part of the intergovernmental agreement with the Village of Richfield to supply them water from Germantown is to get the PSC, the Public Service Commission approval to do so. That can be a time-consuming, very detailed informational report. And I contacted Forth Engineering Environmental. They handled all the design of the water system there, the new booster station that will go in, the well house, the tower issues. And I think they have a very good rapport and have been working with the PSC through a lot of those issues already. And they would be the perfect candidate to proceed and get the PSC approval for the supplying water to the Village of Richfield. Now, according to the IGA, any of the costs that we incur from Forth, and I've confirmed this, and I have an email from Administrator Healy of Richfield, those costs are completely covered 100% by the agreement, and Richfield will pay all costs that Forth would invoice the village for.
Trustee Jan Miller?
Is this something, it is going to the PSC? Is it a report we're asking from the PSC?
So we've made an initial contact with the PSC, and they sent back an outline of information of about 8 or 9 steps that have to be complied with. And some of them are just informational steps, but a lot of them are technical information that Forth pretty much has in hand already from doing the previous work.
Now, the question I have then is, will the PSC require a public hearing?
I'm not sure at this time. I would
Yes.
imagine they would. Yes.
Okay. So I would like to get it on WebEx or something like that so people can access it.
It's under their control.
Right. But there have been, sorry.
It's done through the PSC's site. I'm not sure what they're doing anymore, although I suspect being in Dane County that they're probably still heavily reliant on Zoom or the equivalent. But that access is controlled entirely by them. That's not something that if they don't do that anymore, we wouldn't be able to tell them, hey, do it this way, because they'd just look at us like we're speaking Greek or something. So.
Exactly.
And
But we
I'll
would
add-
get notice of the public hearing.
Yeah, and I'll add, that is a little bit different than what Sewer Pack would do. Sewer Pack would have us advertise for public hearing and hold it at our Village Hall building. So they're both a little bit different.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Further discussion on the motion to approve. Trustee Nyrider.
Roughly how long of a process is that for them to get that approval? Any idea?
It's the PSC. They're estimating, the FOG is estimating a range of time, 6 to 8 weeks of 1,000. It could be. But the thing with the PSC, with the water is that this isn't a surprise to them. As we were going through the process of the booster station and the well and the tower, there were mentions made in the applications that there was this outside chance that we would be asked to supply water to Richfield. So it's not a shock to them. And I think in their mind, they already had established somewhat of a process. I asked FOF to contact them. They did it just to, as a part of a non-billing work here, and contacted by phone call. And you could call them and ask them, okay, what's the procedure we need to follow? What are you going to require? And I think with the next day, we got a reply in an email outlining the procedure already. So I think it's pretty responsive. It doesn't look like it's information that we have to develop and work a long time to get. I think it's a matter of pulling numbers that they may have seen in other submittals already. So.
Okay, and as far as the reimbursement process, is that something where Richfield pays us when it's all over?
No.
Is it piecemeal along?
We'll get invoiced as it goes along, and the agreement that the Village of Germantown will have with Richfield is we'll get the invoice. I will email it to the Village of Richfield for their approval, and he will have the invoice to reimburse us with. We'll pay it, and at that point, we'd expect to be in their process to reimbursing us right away.
Thank you.
Further discussion? No further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Myers?
Aye.
Trustee Rick Miller?
Aye.
Trustee Baum?
Aye.
Trustee Hudson?
Aye.
Trustee Jan Miller?
Aye.
Trustee Nyrather?
Aye.
Trustee Pieper? No. And President Walter.
Aye. Motion passes. Next item is item D under new business, report on upcoming state road construction projects. Is that also for Director Ratajczyk?
That's for me. I do have an overhead that we're going to try to get up here. Like Brian's trying that, yeah. I just wanted to update the board. This is just for informational purposes. Somewhere around a week from the last Friday, we got a couple of telephone calls in the village administrator, public works administration person about Freistadt Road closing over Interstate 41. I didn't know anything about it at the time. And so I suspected it might have been an old project that was started in 2019 with the DOT. And they had outlined a whole array of bridges that were going to have some work done. Actually, it starts from 145 and goes all the way up to Highway 60 in West Bend. I thought I would bring this to the board for public information because it's going to cause some distress with our residents and drivers through the village. If you don't know, what happened is last week, Friday, they had put a message sign up, a week ago it's past, right, put a message sign up saying Freistadt Road is going to close. I wasn't aware of it. I couldn't have informed anybody. I made a few phone calls, And sure enough, I found out that this project was just going to be dropped out of the sky on us. And Freistadt Road closed this morning at 6 a.m. It will be closed for about 6 months, 5 to 6 months. The bridge will be taken down. They'll repaint the girders and building a whole new bridge deck, as you have seen in through maybe the zoo interchange if you drove through there, and bridge repairs. That's one of them. Back in 2019, we said, okay, you can do that, but you can't close Maple Road until Freistadt is opened again. So their schedule is being run by the contractor, who is Zenith Tech. And so the first road that'll be done is Freistadt Road, and that's a complete deck replacement. And that road will be closed. There is no detour set up. DOT will not set up a detour for that. It's just closed. Find your way around the village. So
Closed from where to where?
it's closed just west of Goldendale Road and just east of Hilltop, I believe. I haven't seen the west side. So that's closed for 5 to 6 months until it's completely rebuilt. After that, and then Maple Road will get done. Maple Road is just an overlay. And so that's only about a 1.5, 6 week period to get the overlay done. The one that I feel is going to cause heartache is County Q. County Q is getting a new concrete overlay across the span of Highway 41. The first one that'll be done is eastbound. Eastbound will be totally shut down. During that time, the exit ramp northbound, 41 exit ramp onto Q will be closed, and the southbound entrance ramp from the eastbound lane will be closed. They're not going to put eastbound traffic on the westbound side. There'll be a detour set up for that one. It was pretty lengthy detour because DOT can only detour on truck routes. I don't have the exact outline of that detour yet, but I will. As soon as they're done with eastbound, they will close westbound. The same thing will happen there. The exit entrance ramps on the westbound, the north side will be closed. There's no discussing this with them. This is what's happening. Sorry, we got the initial flyer on the webpage last week. It announced about Freistadt Road, and there is a section, Appleton Avenue, which is in Richfield, that I didn't know where it was at the time when I was in a meeting and commented about their traffic control. But because of my comments, they changed the traffic control and made it Appleton Avenue, in case you drive, there will be closed north side of 167 at the roundabout and at Pioneer, because they're replacing a box culvert. So if you're driving through Richfield and Appleton Avenue, find a side route to get in there. They're going to allow local traffic in, but not through traffic on Appleton Avenue. That's going to take about 4 weeks, I think they said. So I just wanted to come to the board and let everybody know what's going on. Lannon Road will have some work done. The bridge is over the expressway at Lannon Road. That's just going to be underneath painting. They'll be underneath sandblasting and painting all the steel girders. But no deck work will be done, so the traffic will be continuing over that road. Our police are affected because with the Freistadt Road bridge being totally torn apart, there will be nighttime closures of the interstate. Whether it's a couple of lanes, I'm not sure which it is yet. And so we have the two chiefs involved in those lane closures. I just thought I'd bring this for information purposes to the village board because you're the front line of who gets the calls.
Yeah, they really can't touch Maple Road during that County Q project, otherwise people will not be able to get around that in any way.
Fire department had a hard time with it, but they're going to have to make do with different access routes.
Trustee Hudson?
Larry, could you give us an estimate for the county Q work, please?
They're talking County Q, it's about 1.5 months, so 6 weeks per side.
Oh, per side.
Per side, so total 3 months.
Any ideas as to which 3 months it's going to be?
They're going to start that late April.
Summer.
They're going to start at late April. So go well, 3 months from there, April,
Go down
May,
Pilgrim.
June, July. Open up again in August, hopefully.
Thank you.
But that lights up
I don't know how they're going to do, I don't know how they're going to do the traffic control because that traffic control in there, it took us 5 years to get it set up. And it's all almost like artificial intelligence. The cameras read the buildup on the exit ramps and the buildup on the road itself. And the computers in there adjust all that data and retime the lights automatically. We don't even touch them and just retimes them. So I don't know yet. I raised the question to them. It seemed like they weren't aware of that traffic control scenario. And so they're putting it back to me on that.
Trustee Miller, Jan Miller.
So did you say that Frystat's closed now? And then when is Maple Road supposed to start?
Maple Road will not start until Freistadt Road is reopened. That was part of the
Okay.
directions I gave them back in 2019, that those two could not be closed at the same time.
It's amazing they remember from 2019, right?
Yeah, it turns out that they had bid this road out twice before, starting in 2020. And at that time, both those bids came in what they thought were exceptionally high, so they rejected both bids, is what I was told. And this third bid is what they're constructing now. They just said they have to go with it. So,
So this is WISDOT, right? This is, right?
yep,
So it's on their dime.
yes.
Well, our guy.
No.
Well, we still pay tax.
It's not in our road budget.
Right.
It doesn't come out of our budget, road budget.
Correct.
Okay. Well, that's very,
I'll try to keep the webpage updated and our Facebook accounts updated.
okay.
And as we find out more and more about how things are going to shift around. Like I say, the schedule is somewhat loose because it's up to the contractor to make up his schedule based on requirements that he can't close these two roads at the same time and like that.
Any other questions? Trustee Myers.
Larry, are you familiar with Mequon Road? Over the expressway?
Yes.
Because they got the crews in there right now. What are they doing there? Just shoulder work?
The Mequon Road is a deck, a replaced deck. That's going to be a complete takeout. They shouldn't be doing that.
They're there or not right
I'm
now?
not sure what the schedule's on that one. I don't have that one written down. I don't know.
They're there today.
Yeah, there's some of these roads that they didn't give me a schedule on. So they could be surveying, they could be doing miscellaneous.
No, they're not, no, it's serving. They got, trust me.
Okay.
So that means,
I'll
that means
check with them.
Fry staff and then Mequon. It's just,
You're going to get to know your village.
have to go north to
And
go
if
south.
Farmers Fields.
Anyhow, Larry, if you want to check on that and get back to me, if you
Yep,
would please.
I'll check on that in the morning, see what their schedule is. I didn't see it on this printout they gave me today for closures or anything, so
Yeah,
there was nothing on there for Mequon Road.
thank you.
All right. Any other questions? None? Okay. Thank you, Larry.
Mhm.
Last item under new business is item E, cancellation of April 3rd Village Board meeting.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion or additional input? Trustee Jan Miller.
We've had village board meetings right before on the opposites, the next day is the election. So what difference is this one?
We have staff.
Village Administrator.
And the village has historically, they've taken different approaches. Before Deanna was here, the meetings were canceled the day before the election. Deanna felt comfortable making that happen. But I think with new staff in those positions and being short-staffed, it would be very helpful to not have the village board meeting the day before the election. Their mornings start at 5 a.m., the following day, and they're very long days.
Then are we going to have an additional meeting in May to make up?
No, normally we'd have two. If we vote to remove the April 3rd, April 17th meeting, there would only be one meeting in April and two as scheduled in May. You could have a special meeting
Yeah.
if needed. I mean, we can always have special meeting. if needed, if there's something that needs to be acted on sooner before April 17th, that would be a possibility, and we've done that before too.
Okay.
Special village board meeting.
Do you
Further
have-
discussion on the motion to cancel the April 3rd village board meeting. I'm sorry, trustee Miller, were you through?
I just wanted to ask, is there anything on, that's pending that needs to be discussed before the 17th? That's my question.
There's nothing that I'm aware of that can't wait until the 17th. And there is, as the village president mentioned, if something does come up, we could see if people were available for a special meeting. We'd have to coordinate with Plan Commission, but the week of the 10th.
Thank you.
Further discussion? No further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? One opposed? Motion carries. Takes care of all items listed under new business and all items listed on our agenda. Before we adjourn, the next regular village board meeting will be on Monday, April 17th at 7 PM here in the Village Hall Boardroom. Thank you all for coming tonight, and thank you all for participating in WebEx, and have a good night. These are on no matter.